No one actively gets up one day and says, I want a drinking problem. And I'm quite certain that no one ever really says, I'm going to drink a whole lot of alcohol today. It often starts with saying, I'm just going for one or just having one. The creep happens slowly, imperceptibly. In our society, it's normal. If you need to blow off steam when you're stressed or frustrated or angry, you drink. If you want to celebrate somebody's death or life, or to celebrate a win at work, you celebrate with alcohol. It's dinner cocktails, it's making dinner with wine, it's something to symbolize the end of the workday. It takes on so many different forms. And it's not even like a hangover or blackouts are actually considered abnormal. Not remembering something after a night of drinking is sometimes the sign of a good time and actually celebrated in some cases. It's in most songs and TV shows and movies. Like, it's kind of hard to escape. And of course, it's also met with a tremendous amount of stigma, like not drinking is. I've experienced a multitude of responses when people hear that I don't drink. Sometimes it's pity, sometimes it's worry, and sometimes it's out of salaciousness, like, oh, like, I didn't know she had a drinking problem. Like, they want to know why. They want to know if I hit rock bottom. And for a long time, I carried the shame of having to quit drinking with me. I hid it from some, and when I was still working in the construction industry, I told very few that I wasn't drinking. It was absolutely easier and far more comfortable for me to pull the waiter aside and ask him to put down a rocks glass full of soda and then call it a double Grey Goose. I didn't want to hear the questions and the comments. Are you pregnant, Chels? Do you have a problem? You're more fun when you're drinking. Why can't you just have one? Like, it was never like, wow, great job. Like, good for you. I'm so proud of you. And to be honest, sometimes I hate the fact that I had a drinking problem, that I had to be that girl. I hate being that girl sometimes. But I also hated being the one that would walk home from the bar alone drunk. I hated being the girl that sat at the bar with a bunch of lonely old men drinking Guinness for hours on end, thinking that was a source of pride that I could drink that many Guinness in a row and be quote unquote fine. I hated being the one that would panic in the morning because she couldn't find her purse, or would kind of get that awful feeling in the pit of your stomach, like, who did I message or talk to last night? I hated being the one that made terrible decisions when she was drinking. And so I had to decide which I hated being more. And ultimately, I hated being all of those things, all of those different things, because of the influence of alcohol. I wanted more out of life. I wanted the hours back. I wanted the energy back. I wanted the motivation back. I wanted to be able to throw the same level of diligence and planning that I had put into my drinking as I could into self-care and health. And still, though, because I'm human, I get irked and annoyed sometimes at the pity even 5 years later. Recently, I actually offered somebody a drive home one night because they were drinking. And I was trying to be helpful. And so I said, like, hey, I'll give you a drive home, save the Uber costs. I'm sober. And their response was, oh, that sucks. Because like they thought that it was because it was my night to be DD. And traditionally, most people who it's their night to be DD, like they're kind of grumpy about it. And so I informed them that, nope, this was my everyday choice. As I get further into my sober journey, the confidence in saying things like that grows. And I've actually developed quite a foundation in being the odd one, as I like to call it. Frankly, being one of the few who doesn't drink in our boozy culture is still considered odd and abnormal. But to live a life that feels truly awesome, you sometimes have to live in a way that others typically don't want to or are not prepared to. You have to work outside of your comfort zone. You have to change. The world around you isn't going to. A lot of people don't understand why I gave up drinking. But then I consider, like, what if I hadn't? Like, I would not be sitting here recording this podcast in a house that I built in the most significant relationship of my life with my dog at my feet. Like, I wouldn't have the life that I have now. I wouldn't have the health, the clarity, the energy, the drive. Like, I wouldn't have any of it. But then on the flip side, I kind of wrestle sometimes with feeling a little elitist or better than because I don't drink. Because I know that I absolutely get more done in a day just by virtue of eliminating time spent recovering from a boozy night out from my schedule, like, than the person who opts for that. It's a learning process to get to this level of confidence in sobriety. And even though our society is catching up, like, there's far more sober social media accounts than when I first quit, more non-alcoholic beer options and cocktail options. Menus are more robust with their non-alcoholic options and mocktails. Like, there's more support options. When I first quit, I tried AA because, like, that was like the only thing that I could kind of find. And I tried The Tempest. I read the Quit Lit that was available at the time. Like, This Naked Mind was at the top of that list by Annie Grace, which is an amazing book. And now, like, there's so much out there. I'm even part of a national movement called She Walks Canada and the Uncovery app, which is specifically designed to support women who are changing their relationship with alcohol. These organizations are literally transforming outdated ways of looking at drinking. You don't have to label yourself as an alcoholic. And quite frankly, that was something that I was terrified of. Like, I didn't want to have the label of alcoholic on me. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me, it felt problematic. Like, there's more current terms to use. Like, there's alcohol misuse disorder. And there's also more narrative and perspective around what rock bottom and what those who have a problematic relationship with alcohol look like. It is no longer just for the homeless person on the street who lost everything because of their drinking. It's smart, vibrant, hard-working women like me who get caught up in the sometimes very sophisticated and glamorous nature of wine. It's the mommy wine culture that asks, like, hey, guess what's in mommy's sippy cup? It's the hockey bros having beers after their pickup games in the parking lot at the arena. And rock bottom enough, as the founder of She Walks and the Uncovery app talks about, is just that. Like, we don't have to wait until something terrible happens or to lose it all. We can literally just decide that we want better. And I don't mean to oversimplify it, but, like, it can just start from there, like an inclination that there could be something better for us. The work that I do every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern with She Walks Canada is some of the most important work that I do in a week. I volunteer my time and my energy because the women who show up to those calls are choosing themselves in a massive way in just showing up. And I'm grateful that I get to even be there to hold space for them, to listen to what's real for them in a non-judgmental way, because sometimes, like, they're the only ones in their family or social circles who have decided to quit drinking. I want to be able to share what worked for me. Maybe it'll help. If 1% of it lands, then, like, I've done a good job. I want to show them that I understand. And then I want to show them the distinct power of being the odd one out. Those calls allow me to give back and to exercise two values in my life of consistency and discipline. They know that if they sign into that Zoom call on a Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, they are going to see my face. They can count on that. Then they know that they can do it too. Being on the other side of drinking culture is very eye-opening. I'm able to recognize the very clever and sophisticated marketing that we've all been sold. Like, I don't fault anybody, least of all myself, for getting into the situation that I got into. The way that it's entrenched into the fabric of our lives is very pervasive. And I'm able to see now from an outside perspective What happens when somebody is getting messy or belligerent? I can recognize that sometimes as like signs of trauma, stress, exhaustion, and is literally morphing people into people that I don't actually recognize. And I'll be clear that, of course, not everyone has an issue with alcohol. Of course, there are people who can have one and then not touch it again. My partner is actually one of them. He can have a beer, and then it might be weeks or months before his next. He can moderate, but most of us don't know what moderation means, and whether you apply that to alcohol or social media or food or exercise or sex, drugs, or rock and roll, whatever the case is, moderation is a tough thing for a lot of us to do. But he's the exception in this case rather than the norm. Quitting drinking has forced me to sit with those really uncomfortable emotions, like the really dense ones that I have been pushing pause on for so long. I've had the opportunity to actually process them instead of pushing them down. It allows me to react with clarity and groundedness when the big stuff happens. And when it does happen, I actually move through it that much quicker. Not dealing with the big things and the big emotions just lets it permeate our minds and our bodies, and in my experience, creates more dis-ease in our minds and more dis-ease in our bodies. So I'll continue to do the uncomfortable and the unconventional, because it doesn't matter that I'm the odd one out or that people think that, or if they feel sorry for me or think that I had a drinking problem, because I did, and I changed it. I chose to do something that most won't. And I saw firsthand just how much everything improved in my life as a result. It literally changed my life. Mentally, emotionally, physically. I'm more present. I'm more in control of my emotions. My inflammation is reduced. My skin is improved. My weight dropped. My productivity increased. My self-love skyrocketed. My confidence soared. I saved money. I saved time. I saved heartache. And it was also a fire starter. All of the decisions and changes that I made after this one were inherently easier. And it will be 5 years on January 25th of 2025. And I'm so proud of myself and what I've been able to create. And literally, like, that's just by making one decision to quit drinking. Like, I eliminated one thing from my life. And look at all of the return on investment that I got. If any of what I've said today resonates, or you feel like you're in this particular spot, I want you to reach out and I'll share with you as many resources as I have to help you along. And don't forget to like this episode, subscribe if you haven't already. Rating and reviewing the show is also so helpful. Share with somebody who might want to hear this perspective, right? I'd be so grateful. In the meantime, breathe it in, be deliberate, and please be good to yourself.